I don't know if that's gemmable. Okay, so we're gonna start this out. Right off the bat, we have probably one of the strongest soul breaks in the entire festival, with Rose's USB. Rose's USB Benediction is a instant cast, or very, very quick cast to the point of instant cast. Curaga Medica, that's the HP 85, and grants HP stock and Magic Blink 1 to the entire team. This is a very good USB. What makes it is ridiculous as it is the fact that Rosa is one of the healers that has access to Wrath, which means she can cast this at least once every 2 turns, or every three turns. Sorry. So you would be able to Wrath, Medica, Wrath, Medica, Wrath, Medica, and that's not counting damage that you receive from the boss as well. So you probably reduce one of those rotations down to 1 Wrath and then Medica if you needed to. It's just really, 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 really powerful. So that's a chase relic on this entire festival. We knew it was going to be here since it debuted here, and we always wanted and hoped that it would show up on one of the better banners. So there you go. Next up, we have Yuffie's Rising Sun. Definitely not as good, but is a really interesting utility option that does a lot of good things. We have 8 single attacks, and these are water non-elemental, at instant cast speed. Instant cast 7.0 damage is actually pretty powerful. As far as from a damage standpoint, so we're dealing with a high damage entry. It also does attack and defense minus 50% for 25 seconds. So on the second cast, you're going to be dealing with a minus 25% defense on the enemy. You're going to be dealing even more damage. You've seen how useful this is on characters like Vaughn and Lion, where they have magic and defense minus 40% on an insta-cast burst, where Yuffie has attack and defense, just like Lion does, except it's 50% instead of Lion's 40%. And it's water instead of non-elemental, which those two have access to. So while Yuffie does not have access to Life Siphon, she does have a good ability pool and the ability to exploit a lot of weaknesses, so she can generate some Soul Break. Especially because she gets upgraded to Sharpshooter 5 with the Sharpshooter upgrade, which gives her access to water, fire, and ice damage. Most importantly among these is water. So she becomes a strong source of water damage. However, a lot of the power of this burst, like Vaughn and Lion, the strength lies in the attack and defense minus 50% debuff, which is extremely powerful in just about any situation, except for Magicite Dungeon, which is an issue. And added on to this high damage and nice stat breaking, we have a 40% scaling Medica for the party as well. You'll just throw that on there because it's a USB. It's actually really good. It's actually a really good USB, and it's only overlooked because it's next to this, which is just one of the best healer things in the game. And utility is harder to judge because it covers different things across what it does, while this is very single focused to, I'm going to keep this party alive, and I'm going to do it often and very well. This is a good thing, but won't be terribly useful in Magicite. However, it is still very high damage water, and she does have access to Sapphire Shot. So while some of the capability is removed for it, it's probably still viable in Magicite. That's how powerful it is outside of Magicite. Next up, we have Yuna's Conductor, her USB that appeared on the recent Final Fantasy X event. I call this USB the Multiplayer All-Star. Her song for Spira is regular Soulbreak cast, but it is a Medica, and it removes death and grants haste and last stand of the party. And what's nice about this is that it removes death, and then it grants haste and last stand. So you can really recover multiplayer teams easily with this. It loses a lot of value in single player because fights are usually faster, and you don't mind getting your party correct, because the problem that this has, and why it's mostly good in multiplayer, is that if this isn't doing anything, it's basically just a straight downgrade from Eiko's USB. Haste Last Stand and Kiraga Medica isn't bad. It's a good Super Soul Break, but that's what I consider it, a good Super Soul Break. However, if you're one of those multiplayer commandos, you got a good Soul Break on your hands here. I would personally like this because I have no Medicas in Final Fantasy X, and it would be very nice for me. Otherwise, there are definitely better USBs in the game, at least in my opinion. I don't think as highly of this as a lot of people do. Next up, we have one of the new relics. We have Kusha's Demon Rod. And one of the defining characteristics of this guy right here is that it is a plus 20% dark damage rod. That is a 6-star native, so it has a ton of augment slots available to it, and it has a high native magic. I think 168. So this is a very good relic by itself. And let's take a look at the OSB. And I mean, there's not a lot of variation going on with OSBs, but I believe Kusha has a good version of the OSB. Oh, yeah, it's a 44 multiplier if the user has any Doom, which is pretty easy to get on a Darkness Mage. The animation is definitely fantastic. Don't want to interrupt the analysis for that, but I will after we're done doing all the relics, because Kusha's OSB animation is great. So you're basically working with a 44 multiplier, which is a really good thing to have. When you consider that the normal multiplier on a Mage Burst Soulbreak, or OSB, let's see, where's Ash? Is 40. So, Kusha is just a basic 10% upgrade over other Mage OSBs. So it's actually something. I don't know. If you're exploiting vulnerability correctly. Well, Magicite bosses have really high resistance and stuff, so capping out with OSBs isn't as easy as it is on some of the stuff we fight now. So that 44 will actually just come into play. So this is a good OSB and a good relic. What I said about this relic does not apply to any of these. This is nothing. This is plus water damage, but only in Final Fantasy VII, which isn't terribly useful, but great. Is Kusha OSB stronger than Cid Rain's OSB? Yes. Yeah, I would say so. Because there's no condition. You know, that's the thing about Kusha's OSB, is you're going to be doomed. You should be doomed. Because you're playing Kusha. And everything he does requires him to be doomed, so just please use Memento Mori and doom yourself. So there is no real condition to the OSB to improve it to 44. Cid Rain's does have a condition applied to it, where you need to you have a low doom counter for it to have its damage increase applied. So, moving on to the Burst Soul Breaks. We have Sid Rain's Metamorphosis Claw. If you don't have it, you want it. I mean, that's what I got to say about it initially. The relic itself is a 5-star plus dark damage fist weapon. Obviously not as useful as something like a rod or a staff. However, it's something worth having. I have mine augmented, and that's what I use on my Sid Rains when I deal dark damage. But we're going to go and take a look at the burst, because it deserves it. We have Metamorphose, which is 6 single attacks. You have a higher multiplier if you're doomed. Please doom yourself. Memento Mori is a super powerful ability. Make use of it. This is the bread and butter of Sid Rains right here. It's the defense and magic plus 30% to all allies. Not only does Sid Rains have a powerful burst in its own right, but, oh, sure, he just buffs the entire party while he's at it. And the commands don't stop. They don't stop getting better. Don't stop believing. We have Shining Moment, which is 4 single attacks. A low multiplier, but that's fine, because the increase in damage is a very, very powerful one. It's instant magical attacks 1 applied to the user every time you use it. So the first cast is going to be regular cast time, but every cast after that is instantaneous, which means he uses it often, which means he gains a lot more soul break generation than a lot of characters do, because he has the instant magical attacks. Does a whole lot more damage than them, because instant attacks are super powerful. So, awesome first command. And his second command is 2 group attacks, in case you need that available to you, and gives himself another magical buff in Lingering Spirit, which is a unique buff that can stack with anything not named Lingering Spirit. That gives him plus 30% magic and minus 30% resistance. And it does make his Burst Soul Break entry instant too. So, I mean, it's a really, really simple rotation that you're using with Sid Rains with his Burst Soul Break. Because Sid Rains has Wrath capability as support 4, you Wrath to the point where you can Memento Mori and then the turn after uses Burst Soul Break. So you Wrath, Memento Mori, Burst Soul Break, and then start buff yourself again if you need it with a Lingering Spirit, but don't use this if you don't need it. There will be parties that have enough magic buffs where this just becomes redundant, and you're losing damage by using it instead of just going straight to this. So use that if you need it, and then just use this until you're done. Don't bother with Metamorphose again, because there's no reason to cast Metamorphose again until the burst is done. Because Metamorphose, the entry, is high damage, and it's more than 4 attacks. But the problem, and what makes it comparable in damage output to his first command, I know it's crazy. No, he doesn't have Holy Attach. He does have Holy Imperil, though. And no, I don't believe that would be worth it. Okay, so anyways, Metamorphose does a lot more damage than this command, but Metamorphose doesn't give you instant magical attacks after you use it. So by breaking up your instant magical attacks chain, you're actually you're giving and you're taking at the same time. So please, there's no reason to recast his Metamorphose before his burst is done. Unless you're using it as a pseudo OSB, and you think that is going to be your last action. No, Holy Imperil is Holy Imperil. Attach Holy is Attach Holy. They are 2 very different things. So that's how you use Sid Rain's OS or BSB, and it's super, super powerful. But you're not getting plus 20% damage from the bursts because you're already in burst mode. So you're just resetting your burst mode. No, I think in the world of Sid Rains, it's a plentiful world. with many, many magic buffs, and a 20% magic buff is near inconsequential in the world of Sid Reigns. The damage boost that you're getting from that is... you shouldn't overstate it. It's not doing that much. So anyway, moving on. Next up, we have another good burst in Quistis' Dress. It is poison. However, it is still strong. And that is because Quistis has access to support 4. And just like Sid Reigns, that makes her a really nice target for using a strong RM, which increases the damage that she's outputting, because she doesn't need to rely on, other things to get her soul break generation high. And there's no reason to recast her things either. Well, there are. If you have the capability, you can, because it's not like you lose anything for it. Where in Sid Reigns' case, you do. So Quistis is Hail to the Queen. Is poison non-elemental, and that's okay. Like I was saying, when I was going over the Imperial banner, I kind of pooped on Edgar a little bit because it's just not useful, because poison just isn't useful. You do want poison. The problem with Edgar is just that's a bad version of poison when you're living in a world with Quistis and Layla, who are very, very good sources of poison. Quistis, we're going into right here, haste, attach, poison, whatever. Regular entry. And the commands are just typical and strong. And that's fine. The divining characteristic of Quistis is the fact that she has support. So, 4 single attacks. Not as strong as a lot of burst commands, because some of the strength is siphoned off into inflicting statuses, which is, it can be useful sometimes. When it can be useful, it's useful. But you're mostly sad that you're sacrificing a little bit of your multiplier here. However, what makes her strong is that she has support access, and she has the Stitch in Time capability on her second command, which is a plus 30% magic and minus 30% defense buff that she provides to herself. So this is just a lot of good things in one package in the Quistis, where she can Wrath and use a strong burst. And now we will take a slight moment of silence for the fact that they took Doom Train off the banner, Quistis' OSB, and put Conductor on instead. Doom Train would have been something much more worthy of being excited about. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Next up, we have the Staff of Ramah. And I went over this on the Imperial, but since this is probably going to be another video, I will go over it separately now. The staff is plus lightning damage, which is actually fairly rare. There aren't many plus lightning relics for mages in the game. And one of the other ones belongs to Garnet as well, and that would be her Burst Soul Break 1. So, Garnet's BSB2, we have Trial by Lightning. Causes Imperial Lightning for 25 seconds and grants attack and magic plus 30% to all allies for 25 seconds. So what's nice about this is that it's hybrid, and that you can carry this onto a physical team as well, and it'll do just as well because it buffs itself while also buffing physical if they're present. Doesn't stack with Onion Knight, unfortunately, but if you're using this, then you're probably just looking for another source of haste on your party instead. So that's a nice entry for the Imperial Lightning. And the commands itself are quite powerful too. It's one of those summoning bursts where you got 4 commands available to you. The first command, which would be these two, The first one, which is triggers the summon, and the second command acts if you have the summon active and removes the summon. So on the first command, we have restores HP for 40% of target maximum HP. This will auto-acquire if you don't select anybody. And summons remove. That's actually a really nice summon command. And if you recast command 1, it will do 2 group attacks of 2.7 each, which is the same strength as a 3-star summon, I believe. So not terribly powerful. I think the most use you're going to find in this is the second portion of it, where it is a actual group medica for 30% of their max HP. The fact that you can use this one turn for single target, and then use this the next turn for a group, and then go back to this for single, and then go back to group, makes her an actual decent option for dealing a little bit of damage as well as healing the party. So this is one aspect of Garnet, but I think the more common way that you will use Garnet would be with using first command to give your, heal somebody for 40% of their maximum HP, which gives yourself the summon remove status, and then use the second version of command 2, which is 5 single attacks at 2.62 each. That's actually a very powerful command. 13.1 command is a really high multiplier to be spread over 5 attacks. So that is going to be the more common way that you use this. And another thing to mention is it has the uncommon summon damage type, which bypasses a lot of counters. Because most counters will say, if you hit this target with black, or if you hit this target with physical damage, it's referring to BLK and PHY, not SUM. Even though summoning magic is magic, it will not trigger most counters in the entire game. In a typical burst mode, you generally get off 5. I know that changes from character to character because of the different speeds, and the speeds at which they use their commands, but I think it's 5. Yes, that's true. It will bypass Reflect, but that's a little different. I guess a little lesson. Most burst commands bypass Reflect. Yep, TRM. That's how I would do it. However, because it's an Imperil, you don't have any damage on the recast. So I'm not sure if I want to recast it early. I think recasting her Imperil burst is probably a mistake until the duration of the attack and magic buff is done. Right. So most burst commands, this is the indicator for Reflect. If it says single enemy, that means it can only hit an enemy. And that means it can't be reflected back on you. However, stuff that says single can be. So, I mean, looking at burst commands is a horrible place to do this because almost all of them are single enemy. You can't hit your party members with burst commands. However, I can go over into abilities and show you a bunch that can. Right up in Black Magic, we have target single. These can all be reflected at you. This is what you're thinking of. But it's not the damage type that determines reflect status. It's the targeting. Okay, so anyway, that's a really good burst. Next up, we have one of the ageless bursts in the game, Firine's Burst Soulbreak. It is a plus Holy Sword. Certainly not as rare. It's the most common plus elemental damage weapon in the game, so not that much of a deal, but worth mentioning anyway. You do area of effect damage at instacast speed, and that's important from not only a damage standpoint, but also from the utility standpoint, where he doesn't, like most bursts, give himself attach holy or imperil holy or whatever. He just gives magical blink 1 to all of your allies at instacast speed. Excellent, really, really excellent. And that's before we get to the commands. Firine's Weapon Master. So we have two commands here. We have an iterative command. In both Holy Elemental? Yeah, both Holy. You gonna... Anytime now. There you go, buddy. Okay, so here's our iterative command. It has 8 iterations. Scaling with the uses. So the first time you use it will be 1 attack of 0.52 multiplier. Really weak. 2... point or 1.04, you know, etc., etc., until you get up to the 8 attacks in which you're doing a massive multiplier spread over 8 attacks. That'll be really powerful. However, in most cases, this is not what you should be using, because boss fights don't last long enough for this to become really all that effective. What you're probably going to want to be doing instead in most fights is using Command 2 over and over again, similar to the way you would use Onion Knight's Burst Soul Break with his Command 1. However, there are situations in which you would use this, and that is torments. Torments that have, you know, like 4 to 6 waves of trash in them, and you just keep on stacking this, and by the time the boss comes around, you already have 8 stacks on it. That's a lot of damage. A lot of damage on one burst command that you're going to have immediately for the burst boss fight. So anyway, that's excellent for certain situations, but most of the time you're going to be using this. But all of this is just gravy on top of the fact that he instantly casts a magic blink for your party and does respectable damage while he's at it. So this is a very good burst. And next up we have Ashtola's Healer Circlet. Which is one of the better healer BSBs. It's very, very healing focused. Well, completely healing focused. And provides a little bit of a damage buffer. Which primary use is... Well, I mean, let's get to this before I start talking about it. Asylum. Alright, so... The BSB cast itself restores Kiraga level of HP, the 85. And grants Stone Skin 30% to your party. This is both a blessing and a curse. You're generally going to want to be using this in situations where you know a large attack is coming and you want to absorb some of it, so you're not in panic mode for your team. Because one of the problems with Stone Skin 30% is it prevents damage from being done to your party, and that can be an issue. Because if damage isn't being dealt to your party, that means they're not generating any extra soul break. So that means by using Stone Skin 30% at the wrong times, you are reducing the damage output of your party, and the healing of your party as well, and the support of your party as well. Because soul break generation is so important in this game. Why this burst soul break is considered as good as it is not actually so much for the burst itself. It is a good burst. It is a fairly good healer burst. But there's been a lot more that have come and taken its place at the top. The good parts about it are for 2 reasons. Y'shtola has support 4 access, which means the Stone Skin 30%, the first turn after you cast it, if you don't use it to absorb a large hit, means that no one's taking damage, and you keep healing people that aren't taking damage doesn't do anything for you. So you can actually wrath the turn after you use it most of the time, and that does help mitigate some of the soul break generation that you've lost. And the other would be that the fact that it's on Y'shtola, and Y'shtola is one of the 2 blessed wall users in the game. Which is actually a big deal. So though Asylum is kind of a above average, middle of the pack to above average healer burst by itself, it is enhanced greatly because of the character that it occurs on. Oh, I didn't even go to the commands. It's got a typical setup of commands. Typical these days. Asylum is an insta-cast Kiraja, while the second command is a Medica command. So, typical and good. Next up, we have Terra's Legacy, which is a nice addition to this banner. It was originally on the Japanese banner. We're definitely glad that it stayed because it pairs up very well with Kuja's Demon Rod. So Terra's Legacy is Kuja's Burst Soul Break, and it is also a plus dark damage rod. However, only 5-star to his OSB's 6-star. We have Kuja's Force Symphony, which, judging by the entry, is just a typical Imperil Dark. And then once we move to the commands, we find out why I was talking about Kuja on the Imperil banner analysis, about why he's so high damage. That is, his Force Symphony has a regular multiplier of 2.04 and 2.94 over 2 attacks and 2.04 over 4 attacks. However, both of them have an increased multiplier if you have a Doom status, and you're a Darkness Mage, so you should be doomed anyway. And the 2.86 multiplier over 4 attacks is actually a very strong command. So even though he is an Imperil Dark, and generally Imperil versus N element usually means you're doing less damage in return for inflicting Imperil, it's less so the case on Kuja because he does so much more damage than your typical Imperil user. So, very strong. And Kuja himself is a very good character, and his very good OSB shows up on the banner. They work well together. In most cases, you would want the BSB before you want the OSB, because the OSB by itself isn't that powerful. However, in this case, since the OSB is plus dark damage on a 6-star rod, that's a really nice relic for you to have regardless. So this is a good pickup anyway. So that is also good. Next up, we have the 2 Super Soul Breaks on the banner. And it should be noted, for those that care, that the way the probability of pulling is dealt with on this banner is that if you pulled a 1 of 11, which means for every 5-star, or for every orb that shows up, whether disco or rainbow, you have a certain percentage chance of pulling one of these relics. And on these banners, the distribution is 1% on everything up to Terra's Legacy, from that point up, and these are 2%. So you have twice as much chance. It's basically, that's what we're saying here, is you have twice as much chance of pulling Darkening Cloak as you do Terra's Legacy. However, because of the way the banner is distributed, that means you have a 4%, not a 4 out of 14 ratio of drawing one of these to an 11 out of 14, or sorry, 10 out of 14 of pulling anything above here. So it is still greatly in favor of the bursts and above over the Super Soul Breaks. I do agree that we, global, not North America, this is the Euro game as well. Edge's Super Soul Break was on this banner in Japan, and it was excellent. Excellent. While Cloud of Darkness's light armor is plus dark armor, the Super Soul Break itself isn't very powerful. So while you don't mind getting dupes of it for the light armor, very, 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 very small percentage chance of that happening, Sled. But yes. The thing about Edge's Super Soul Break is that it is plus fire damage light armor, as well as being a good Super Soul Break as well. And that was a nice thing, and they took it. They took it from us. Yeah, Garnet's Super Soul Break actually does still hold up. I used it as recently as the Sid mission in Final Fantasy IX, because having a native Heiska is usually fine, but not, it's fine. But you're really looking at the stuff that it comes with and that is the plus 50% resistance buff, and the heavy regen is good for Sid missions. So, you know, everything that this provides, this is one of the original really powerful Super Soul Breaks, helps this be a really powerful Sid mission stick. At the end of the day, though, this is kind of sad. Unless you're really in the market for plus dark damage magical armor. And it is light armor, too. So, how do we feel about this banner? I mean, this is one of the game's chase relics. This is very good. This may or may not be good. This is very good. This is one of the game's chase relics. This is very good. Good. This is one of those timeless classics, like Vaughn's Bristol Break. This just probably going to be good for a long time. I'm not going to say always, but it's hard to see the use of this diminishing all that much over time, because instant cast Magic Blink is good on him for the same reason that it's good on her. This is a very good thing if you have either... Yeah, I mean, if you have Thyrus, or if you plan on pulling for Thyrus. But if you plan on pulling for Thyrus, which is her Stone Skin 2, that means you're pulling on a Realm banner in the future that has this on it. The Final Fantasy XIV event that will be showing up at the start of July has this Healer Circuit as well as Thyrus on it. So if you're looking to pick up both, that's where you're looking to pick them up. So I'd probably only consider this a win if I already had Thyrus. But there are a lot of good relics on this banner. I like it. And my initial reaction to it was pain and dismay, because I feel like Japan's version of the banner was much, much better. But other than that, it's still a good banner. Alright, any questions or comments about Banner 1? I have 3 dupes? Yeah. 1 dupe, 2 dupe, 3 dupe. What have we been... Has it been giving me Final Fantasy XIV music? I don't know. I don't really pay attention to it. Which is weird, because I think the music's a lot louder for me than it is for you. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. That makes sense. No, it is actually completely random. On a playlist of 134 songs. So I can go over my personal assessment based upon what I have. I really love this. I like this. I have her burst already, and I'm actually really enamored by her burst, because my water team, since picking up Titus's CSB, really likes the fact that Yuffie has her burst, and I probably plan on using that more often than her USB, unfortunately, because of its fast cast ability to rack up water chain. What is the number of attacks on the entry? Let's see if there's any kind of equivalency with using the attacks you get off of it with Sapphire Shot on her. Eight. So in a typical run, you're going to be using 8 single attacks, then 2 with Sapphire Shot. Probably 3 or 4 uses of Sapphire Shot. Yeah, the number of attacks you're going to get isn't going to be equal. So as a water team that's centered around my Chain Soul Break from Tidus, I think this wouldn't be as good for me as it would be for others, because her burst is much more suited for it. Rosa's Legend Materia is terrible. All of them. Heal's getting better as phases change. Yeah, but heals, it doesn't really work that well. I mean, what percentage are we looking at? His heals don't scale off of mine that well. It's only plus 25% maximum. This is not good. If we were looking at more something 35 plus, 35 to 50% increase in mine, then yeah, okay. But 25%, no. The wording on this is weird. Mine plus 1% for each hit dealt? What does that mean? Yeah, that makes it sound like it's magic, or inflicting damage, but I mean, that's not exactly something good for Rosa. She's not an attack mage. I am assuming this is just whenever you use a white magic ability. Anyway, her LMR. Both her Legend Materia and LMR are just terrible. This one's fine, her first one, but there's healers are so much better. I repeat, I would not spend 5-star motes on Rosa. You got it, Jimbo. All right, so that's